Hello dear viewers of my channel. I hope everyone enjoys the new video. Have a good time watching it. Xavier hit the Spirit King in the face with great force. The spirit didn't understand how this was possible, because no matter how strong the mana was, it shouldn't be able to do any damage to him. Looking at Xavier, he realized that the guy was a supreme master who had an incredible level of strength. While Xavier wasn't about to stop and prepared for his next attack, the Spirit King missed his head again and screamed in pain. The enemy began hysterically trying to get away from Xavier's continuous blows, which seemed to have no intention of stopping. The spirit begged Xavier to stop while Lloyd watched silently from the sidelines. The spirit was apologizing and begging Xavier to stop, while covering himself from a huge number of punches. Xavier finally stopped and looked intently at the spirit he had been beating only moments before. The spirit was begging Xavier to stop, because it had lost almost all of its mana from the blows, and if it continued like this, it might disappear. As Xavier began to draw his sword from its sheath and then began to draw the blade of the sword, and after a moment he let it go, causing the ghost to receive another blow from Xavier, who a moment later drew the blade of the sword again, with the same crazed look on his face, and then made another attack with the blade. Lloyd stopped his subordinate, saying that you can't treat someone who can't even fight back like that. Lloyd said that violence does not solve anything. The Queen thought that in their case one strong blow could solve everything. While Lloyd sent Xavier away and started to respectfully lift the poor spirit, Xavier tried to attack again and Lloyd defended the spirit, saying that the guy should stop, it was too violent. The Queen began to suspect that Lloyd and Xavier were working on a plan. While the spirit began to thank the protagonist profusely for saving it, Lloyd was incredibly happy with the result he had just achieved and looked admiringly at Xavier, who was also very happy that they had managed to subdue the spirit. The Queen, who had been watching the whole thing, sincerely began to believe that the boys were a real band of bandits. Lloyd invited the spirit to talk to him and again asked why he was interfering with the construction. The spirit tearfully confessed that he just couldn't bear to watch the nature of his mountain range being destroyed. Lloyd asked the spirit if he would mind if they improved the nature of the place during the construction. Such words struck the Queen. She had not expected to hear something like that from Lloyd. The spirit began to say that under such conditions he would not mind, but also wanted to add that people do not usually do that. Lloyd confessed that the spirit was right, for while other animals adapt to nature, humans change nature to suit themselves. Lloyd also began to say that having the power to destroy nature, they should improve and protect it. The Queen watched as Lloyd promised to make this mountain range even more beautiful. The Queen didn't understand why they should take care of nature when they had already subdued the spirit. Lloyd asked if the spirit could make the climate of this place warmer, for then it would be much easier for them to work. The spirit, with a delighted look on its face, began to say that it could do so, as long as it did not harm nature. While the Queen still couldn't fully understand Lloyd, she looked at the protagonist thinking that he intrigued her. The first step in the construction was to punch a hole in the gorge and widen it. Later, they began to create a solid track in order to install the railroad. Also, the second stage was to create a system of switching railroad tracks, but thanks to the engineers this stage was over quickly. The third stage was the construction of the train, and it was also not a problem because Lloyd did such a thing in hell. The demon girl began to talk about the fact that demons are willing to work for food, because to earn food is the most sacred thing. The demons worked very hard and ate very little, which was just fine with Lloyd. The fourth step was that they were busy with plants, creating beautiful species which demons are also good at. Suddenly Lloyd's heart began to ache again, and he clutched his chest. The Queen was worried about the protagonist, because the construction was taking a long time, and she thought they should hurry up. Lloyd began to say that they could not do that, and then with a tired look said that nature must be preserved. The Queen did not understand why Lloyd would sacrifice himself for such a thing, as he might die, but he explained that if he didn't, he would regret it in the end. Lloyd made a mad face and then said that if the nature of the place made it popular with tourists, he could make a fortune by setting up a hotel here. The Queen instantly lost the glare in her eyes. It was all Lloyd, as always, in his repertoire. The Queen was surprised that the guy was spending her money to make money for himself. Lloyd instantly fell to his knees and started talking about how the benefit to the kingdom was much greater and that he only needed a small building. The Queen began to smile while Lloyd watched her reaction carefully. And then the Queen said that Lloyd should strive for more, because his greed benefits many. Lloyd was overjoyed, for he had the opportunity to create a business that would bring him pocket money. For now all his money went to maintaining his territory. At that time the train was completely ready, and the demons moved it with the help of the mechanism. The train moved along the tracks while Lloyd ordered a lever to be switched, pointing to the railroad. A moment later the railroad tracks began to change, and then the train went in the direction they wanted. Such a thing caused only delight in the children of demons, because they could see such a thing for the first time in their lives, while the spirit also with a smile on his face watched what this place could turn into. The guys on the train saw the incredible views that appeared before their eyes, as Lloyd suddenly received a new skill for the achievement, namely the ability to jump over any obstacle, which caused a complete misunderstanding of Lloyd, because he is already a master of the sword, and such a skill he does not need. At that time, the time dome that had been standing over the mountain evaporated a moment later, allowing time to run its course. At the same moment Lloyd immediately felt a terrible pain in his heart. The guy continued to sit and did not give any signs of pain, and a moment later he began to fall, but at the last moment the queen managed to pick up the exhausted Lloyd, and then she swore an oath in her ear, namely that she will definitely protect the protagonist and he should not worry. At that time the dragon hovered over the train, after which the queen said that it was time for them to leave to save the royal decree. Some time later a very bright sun rose over the palace. At the same time Lloyd was finally able to open his eyes. Then he instantly noticed the hand that was pouring its mana into him. It turned out to be the queen, who didn't seem at all surprised that the guy had regained consciousness. Lloyd tried to get up and apologize for his rudeness, while the girl said that a sick person should stay in bed. The queen asked Lloyd to hurry up and put on formal clothes, for she was about to start the ceremony of handing over the Eye of Summer, which appealed to Lloyd with absolutely no emotion at all. A while later the queen started to announce to a large number of people that thanks to Lloyd they got the trade route. Then she started to shout that now their kingdom is the center of trade of the whole world, and they were able to get the power of a great nation without a fight. Then the girl looked towards Lloyd, who felt just awful, while the queen talked about giving the Eye of Summer to the hero as a reward. The queen was very worried about Lloyd because his condition was getting worse by the second, but she just can't ignore the official procedure. After that the wizards brought the artifact itself while Lloyd's heart was getting worse by the second. His eyes were completely empty and his body was shaking. Suddenly the heart of the protagonist stopped. After that the artifact of the Heart of Winter began to force the heart of the hero to beat, because at this rate he would just die. The nobleman began an incredibly long speech that they begin the ritual of transferring the artifact, while the hero completely lost control over his body. It seemed from minute to minute he would simply die. The emptiness more and more absorbed his heart and soul, and after a moment his head began to fall, and then the body itself began to fall to the ground because Lloyd lost his life. While the queen instantly drew her blade and then screamed with all her might, while Xavier instantly flew into the air from the crowd of people, after which the queen instantly swung towards the box containing the artifact. This caused a complete misunderstanding from the nobleman who could not understand what she was trying to do, while the queen instantly shattered the box with the artifact with an incredibly fast strike of her sword. This caused a complete shock in the eyes of the people, as they could not understand what was happening, while the artifact became visible to all the people who were in the place. The artifact began to emit a tremendous amount of light. The artifact seemed to emit incredible flames, while Xavier was instantly near the artifact, seemingly a second before the explosion was about to occur. Xavier then covered himself along with the unstable artifact with a shield of mana. Xavier's body began to be covered in burns due to the temperature this incredible artifact was emitting. The queen who was running towards Lloyd pondered how she could do something so reckless for just one person. But trying to lift Lloyd, she truly believed that this guy could solve any problem that might arise. The queen started to give her mana with the firm intention to give Lloyd all of it without worrying about her life. Suddenly Lloyd was able to open his eyes. Then he instantly used his fast charging ability and his hand started to absorb a huge amount of mana. Lloyd then pointed his hand towards the artifact, and a moment later the artifact burst out of Xavier's shield, and at a great speed headed towards Lloyd, who was lying on the ground preparing to absorb the artifact. A moment later the artifact instantly began to flow into the hand of the protagonist, causing a strong wave, after which everything went back to normal and all the people were safe again. They did not understand what had just happened, while Xavier, who had incredible power, was lying on the ground, as well as the queen and Lloyd were also lying on the ground. The Eye of Summer began to absorb and the Heart of Winter saw an incredibly bright light. Then it seemed the light began to come closer and closer to the heart. The Eye of Summer looked at the other artifact with love in its eyes, while the heart was looking at the Eye of Summer with the same rapturous look. Then they embraced each other, which caused the harmony between cold and warmth to begin to create. Eventually it created a powerful hurricane that combined these two opposing qualities. Then it began to merge together, creating a bright sphere. After that the heart of the protagonist instantly returned to normal and the cold finally receded. After that Lloyd was able to open his eyes again. Lloyd suddenly received a completely new ability, namely the baptism of the Demon King, which he could give once a day, and which also only lasted for 24 hours. After that Lloyd mentally wondered what effect the baptism gives, and it turned out that it gives true effectiveness. The system explained by example that if you give the baptism to Xavier, he will instantly become the highest master from a high entry-level master, which is the same as the baptism of a Demon King. Lloyd was shocked at the information he had just learned. Then a smile instantly appeared on his face. Lloyd started to rise to his feet, under the queen's gaze. The guy landed flat on his feet, after which he immediately addressed the people of the kingdom saying that this was an incredible performance that had been invented by the queen herself for them. Lloyd said in a loud voice that now everyone will know that their kingdom will soon become the richest country in the world. He also gesticulated incredibly and began to say that even if they were to be attacked by dragons, they could easily hold them off. Such a speech caused an instant reaction of all the people. They were incredibly proud and happy for their kingdom, while the Queen and Xavier just smiled silently looking at the protagonist, who after a moment began to turn around to them, and with a wide smile and a glint in his eyes looked at them. Thanks a lot to everyone who watched this video to the end. Really thanks guys.
날 보고 있으면 baby 너를 위한 멜로디 yeah 네가 뮤지니까 잘 들어봐 play it